You are pathetic. How dare you sit there and judge me?
Providence Municipal Court falls quiet just before 11 in the morning. Judge Frank Caprio looks up from his files and the next name called carries weight most people in the room already recognize. Sloane Barrett, the daughter of Senator Victor Barrett, a man whose influence reaches further than most laws he helped write. She walks in like someone used to, doors opening before she even touches them. But today, that door feels heavier than she expected. I am Frederick, and I study courtrooms the way some people study storms, not for the drama, but for the moments when power meets consequence. This is one of those moments. Sloane Barrett is 27, composed, dressed in an ivory suit that probably costs more than most people make in a month. Her phone screen glows with unread messages. Her posture radiates control. She doesn't look around. She doesn't need to. To her, this is just another formality, another place where her family name keeps her insulated. The bailiff reads the charge, State versus Sloane Barrett, exceeding the speed limit in an active school zone, 42 miles per hour in a 20. The judge greets her. She responds briskly. She has a meeting downtown in 20 minutes. She wants this wrapped up quickly. Caprio looks at her for a long moment. He's seen this before, confidence sharpened into something harder by the illusion of untouchable privilege. He asks her to explain what happened. She leans forward, palms flat on the podium. The lights on that street are inconsistent, she says. Everyone knows they start flashing early. It's an outdated system designed to trap commuters. Caprio repeats the word softly. A trap, she shrugs. A fair accusation, she insists. She works with transportation policy. She knows what she's talking about. And here's something I've noticed over the years. When people start explaining their credentials instead of their actions, they're usually avoiding something they don't want to admit. The judge asks if she saw the school beacons flashing, if she saw the children on the crosswalk. She answers quickly. There were no kids in sight. It was late morning. Summer session doesn't even start until next week. Caprio checks the report. She was cited at 10:41. Dismissal from the nearby academy ends at 10:45. So the beacons were active and children were still crossing. That means her speed was 22 miles over the limit while those children were in motion. Sloane smiles tightly. She understands the law, she says. She also understands overregulation. 22 over isn't a crime. It's a calculation error. She's not here to debate safety zones. She just wants to pay the fine and leave. A whisper moves through the courtroom. Someone murmurs, "Pay the fine? That's all?" His wife nudges him, but the sentiment hangs in the air. If you think justice should mean more than convenience, tap the like button. It helps more people see stories like this. Caprio keeps his gaze level. That might be what she's used to. Quick payments and quiet exits. But this isn't a drive-through justice system. She blinks, almost surprised by the firmness in his tone. She tries to retake control. With respect, she's not some teenager speeding down Main Street. She was late to a briefing about infrastructure funding, the kind of meeting that actually improves roads like the one she was on. The judge leans forward slightly. So in her view, her work improving roads excuses breaking the laws that govern them. She sharpens. That's not what she said. She says the citation is disproportionate. She and the judge both know who really pays these fines, working people who can't afford them. This system isn't fair. And yet Caprio says quietly, those same working people follow the rules she broke. The words land with precision. Sloane crosses her arms. The confidence falters for just a heartbeat. Caprio turns a page in the file. She has 2 prior warnings for speeding in adjacent school zones. One reduced, one dismissed after a driving course. She sighs. Those weren't the same circumstances. Maybe not, he says. But the pattern is familiar. The court isn't here to humiliate her. But when a driver repeats the same violation, the question becomes, what didn't she learn the first 2 times? Her chin lifts. She says he's implying she thinks she's above the law. That's not true. Then act like it isn't, he replies. The sentence hits harder than his tone suggests. It isn't anger, it's disappointment, and that carries more weight. She exhales, half laugh, half disbelief. He's turning a minor traffic stop into a morality play, she says. She's not the villain here. No, Caprio answers calmly. She's the example, the one who proves that even people raised around power sometimes forget that rules aren't negotiable. Silence stretches across the room. The tension isn't loud, but it's absolute. Somewhere near the back, an older woman murmurs, That's the first real thing she's heard all morning. Sloane stares at the bench. She wants to respond to reclaim the upper hand, but the rhythm of the room has changed. The judge has the floor, and the courtroom has joined him. Caprio leans slightly forward. She says she wants fairness. So does he. But fairness begins with listening, not interrupting. The words are gentle but final. And for the first time since she entered, Sloane doesn't have an answer. The first barrier of her entitlement begins to crack, not because he shamed her, but because he didn't need to. The judge looks down at the paperwork again. Officer Diaz's body cam footage will clarify what happened, he says. She may want to prepare herself. Evidence doesn't vote, and it doesn't lie. A faint ripple of realization crosses her face. The courtroom stays silent. The truth is about to play out, and for once her last name won't change how it ends. The next piece of evidence isn't just paper, it's proof. Caprio asks the clerk to bring up the footage. The courtroom monitor lights up. The intersection near Elmwood Avenue, the one Sloane insists is faulty. The timestamp reads 10:41. Yellow flashing beacons reflected on wet asphalt. A silver sedan streaks across the frame, quick enough that the image struggles to keep focus. The judge asks if that's her vehicle. Sloane glances once, then looks away. It's hard to tell, she says. The video quality is poor. The license plate matches hers, Caprio says. Would she like to see it paused closer? Her jaw tightens. That won't be necessary. Officer Diaz steps forward. The radar confirmed 42 in a 20. The school lights had been active for 7 minutes. Children were crossing from St. Mary's Academy, dismissal due to an early summer program. Sloane lets out a short dismissive laugh. They're exaggerating, she says. That stretch of road is practically empty. Those kids were probably long gone. Before the judge can speak, she keeps going. If they're being technical, she was keeping pace with the car ahead. She's sure the officer didn't pull them over. The officer stays steady. There was no car ahead of her at that moment. Caprio studies her face. Does she realize she's interrupted the officer 3 times in one statement? She's just clarifying facts, she says. He replies softly. She's clarifying her comfort. That's not the same thing. A ripple of subdued laughter moves through the gallery. She hears it and it stings. She straightens her shoulders. She doesn't appreciate being mocked. No one's mocking her, Caprio says. They're reacting to how familiar this sounds. Familiar? She asks sharply. Yes. People who believe rules are flexible usually sound like this. He gestures to the monitor. But rules don't bend, they hold. That's why children make it across those streets alive. Her eyes flash. Is he implying she doesn't care about children's safety? He's implying her actions didn't show that she did. She scoffs. He's twisting her words. Caprio's tone doesn't shift. He's reading her record. He taps the file. 2 prior warnings. Same pattern. Same defense. Her voice rises. Maybe because it's true. Or maybe, he says evenly, because it's convenient. The tension thickens. The senator's daughter is no longer the composed professional. She's unraveling under the weight of calm authority. The clerk scribbles notes. The gallery watches every word. And I can't help but think sometimes the quietest voices carry the most force. Caprio hasn't raised his voice once, and yet every word has landed. Officer Diaz steps back. Caprio closes the folder halfway. Before they address penalties, he says he'd like to understand something. He leans forward slightly. When she drove that morning, did it cross her mind that she could be here, explaining why 42 miles per hour wasn't dangerous? Did she think she'd have to answer for it? Sloane blinks. She didn't think it was that serious. And that, he says, is the entire problem. When people with power start deciding what's serious and what isn't, laws lose their meaning. Her lips part, but no answer comes. It's not anger anymore. It's discomfort. The truth feels heavier than the accusation. At that moment, the courtroom door opens quietly. A tall man in a grey suit enters and takes a seat near the back. Senator Victor Barrett himself. His presence draws subtle glances. He doesn't speak, but his silence carries weight, the type built from years of authority. The judge notices. Sloane straightens as she sees him. Perhaps they can clarify something, she begins. Caprio interrupts gently. Her father's presence has no bearing on the facts. He's welcome to observe, not to intervene. She tries again. Maybe he can clarify that she's not some reckless driver. The judge's voice deepens slightly. Not louder, but firmer. He knows who her father is. He also knows what this courtroom stands for, and it doesn't stand for influence. A heavy silence falls. The senator looks down at his clasped hands. For once, even he doesn't interrupt. Sloane shifts uncomfortably. He's making this personal, she says. Caprio shakes his head. It became personal the moment she risked lives. The moment a parent might have had to bury a child because someone in a hurry thought her agenda mattered more than a flashing light. Her jaw locks. That's unfair. What's unfair, he replies, is expecting different treatment because of her last name. The lights don't recognize privilege. They blink for everyone. The words hit like stones dropped in water, spreading outward until the whole room seems to feel them. She looks down at her hands. No retort forms this time. The judge waits a moment before continuing. They'll now hear from a community witness. She frowns. A witness? Yes, someone who was nearby that morning. The side door opens, and a woman in her 70s walks in. Modest clothes, steady step, eyes lined by decades of responsibility. Her name is Mrs. Aurora Bell, a school crossing guard who served the district longer than Sloane's been alive. Portion. The contrast between them is striking. Power meets humility. Politics meets service. And the next few minutes will decide which one stands taller. Mrs. Bell approaches the stand with quiet dignity. She's small-framed, her hands folded neatly, her orange safety vest still draped across her shoulders. Decades of morning shifts in rain and snow are written in the lines on her face. But so is patience. She nods once at Judge Caprio before speaking. He thanks her for joining them. She nods again. She was at her usual post by the crosswalk near St. Mary's. The lights were flashing. There were 3 children with her. One of them was her grandson. They were waiting for a break in the traffic when that silver sedan came through. Sloane exhaled sharply, shaking her head. With all due respect, there's no way she could see that clearly from her position. Caprio raises a hand. She'll have her turn. Mrs. Bell continues, unbothered. She could see enough. She saw the car coming fast, and she pulled the children back. Her grandson asked her why people don't stop when the lights flash. She told him, some people think their time's worth more than our lives. The courtroom stills. The line lands heavier than any argument so far. Even the senator in the back lowers his gaze. Sloane bites her lip, her composure faltering for the first time. That's dramatic, she says. She wasn't even close to hitting anyone. Mrs. Bell looks at her, not with anger, but with sadness. Maybe not this time, sweetheart, but that light doesn't flash for you. It flashes for the ones who don't see you coming. What do you think? Was Sloane genuinely unaware, or was she just used to getting away with it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Caprio lets the silence breathe for a moment before he speaks. He thanks Mrs. Bell. The older woman nods, steps down, and takes her seat again. The sound of her footsteps feels like a verdict. The courtroom has shifted from argument to reckoning. Sloane tries to recover. This is emotional manipulation, she says. This is a traffic violation, not a tragedy. Caprio leans forward. Does she think tragedy waits for permission? She blinks. She's saying he's turning this into something bigger than it is. No, he says. He's reminding her it could have been. Her expression tightens. She's searching for an exit, some rhetorical door to slip through. But every one she tries only leads back to the same truth. For the first time, her father shifts in his chair, adjusting his cufflinks, trying to read the judge's mood. The gallery is utterly silent. Caprio glances at the senator. When citizens see that someone powerful breaks the same rules they're punished for, it erodes trust. And without trust, no policy, no reform, no governance survives. The senator nods faintly, jaw clenched. He knows it's true. Sloane interjects again, her voice softer but still defiant. So, what now? He's going to make an example out of her because of who her father is. Caprio's tone remains level. No, he's asking her to remember who she is. She carries her name like armor, but names don't protect us from responsibility. She's not asking for protection, she says quickly. She just doesn't want to be treated unfairly. Fairness, he replies, isn't comfort. It's consequence. She looks away, silent. The judge folds his hands again. Years ago, he stood where she is, metaphorically. Not because he broke a law, but because he thought his title excused his impatience. His father taught him otherwise. He said, Frankie, the day you think you're above waiting in line is the day you stop serving the people in it. He never forgot that. For the first time, Sloane's defiance slips into something like introspection. Her father's eyes flicker briefly toward her, as if remembering a time when he too had been humbled. Caprio continues, this court doesn't measure people by the size of their nameplates or campaign pins. They measure by actions. She can't interrupt her way through accountability. She swallows, then murmurs, "You're right, Your Honor." The words are quiet, almost accidental, but real. He nods once, satisfied, but not triumphant. That's a start. He gestures to the clerk. "Please bring in the next statement." Mr. Gomez, a middle-aged man, rises from the second row. He's wearing a rideshare jacket, cap in hand, humility in posture. His testimony is next, and it will close every remaining escape route Sloane has left. Mr. Gomez was the driver behind her that morning. He had a passenger on board, dash cam running. The light was blinking. He saw her car swerve left, then straighten. He hit his brakes because she cut too close to the cones. "Did he capture that on video?" Caprio asks. "Yes. His company requires dash footage for all active rides." The clerk confirms, pulling up a still image. Sloane's silver sedan glinting under flashing lights. A blurred figure, a child, visible at the edge of the frame. The breath leaves the room. Sloane's eyes widen. "That child, Mr. Gomez says, his voice trembling slightly, was the same one the crossing guard pulled back. Caprio's tone turns grave. "So this isn't hypothetical. It's proximity." Sloane's mouth opens, but the words don't come. She blinks hard, fighting the realization settling over her. "She didn't see them," she whispers. "Exactly," Caprio says. "And that's what makes speeding deadly. Not malice, but blindness." The senator leans forward, his hand over his mouth. The weight of it all has finally reached both father and daughter. For the first time, neither speaks. The still frame hangs in the air like a bell that won't stop ringing. The gallery breathes again, only when Judge Caprio lowers his eyes to the file and closes it with care. He thanks Mr. Gomez and then nods to the clerk. "There's one more item the court will mark into the record." Sloane straightens, bracing herself. "How much more of this is necessary?" she asks. "As much as it takes to make truth heavier than habit." Caprio replies. The clerk reads. During the stop at 10:43, the defendant's phone received a lock screen message from a contact labeled Dad, capital. "All set. Clerk expects you. Be brief." Message captured incidentally on body microphone footage. A hush spreads outward from the bench. All eyes shift, almost involuntarily, toward the back where Senator Barrett sits. He does not move. His face is composed, but the muscles in his jaw hold too tightly. He glances down at his hands rather than up at the bench. Sloane speaks quickly. "That's private." He was just reassuring her. Caprio's tone remains even. What he reassured her of may matter less than what she reassured herself of, that a door would open here before she reached it. For the record, no one in this courtroom expected her. The only thing they expect of anyone is the truth. She swallows. She didn't ask for special treatment. She asked for speed, and she expected exemption, Caprio says, not unkindly. Those are cousins. A paper rustles at the clerk's table. The bailiff steps forward, holding a folded note, the kind of quiet influence that prefers corners to microphones. He offers it to the bench. Caprio does not take it. "Where did that come from?" "An aide passed it to the clerk," the bailiff says. Caprio gestures for the bailiff to hold it up, not unfold it. Let the record reflect that an ex parte communication was attempted during a live proceeding. It will not be read, it will not be considered, and it will not happen again. In this room, sunlight is not optional. A low murmur of approval flickers through the gallery. The senator's eyes close briefly, a blink that looks like regret. He makes no move to speak. The daughter does. "That wasn't from her," she says. Caprio didn't say it was, but it was for her. Influence is often a gift that arrives wrapped and unsigned. Her voice shrinks a half step. She didn't need it. If that were true, he says gently, she wouldn't have expected it. Silence deepens, not hostile but corrective. It's the sound of a room remembering what it is. Caprio folds his hands. She has interrupted repeatedly, minimized risk, and leaned on status without saying the word. Yet the evidence says otherwise. Flashing beacons, a rideshare dash, a crossing guard's testimony, prior warnings, an officer's report. This isn't about crushing her. It's about stopping her before someone else is. She exhales, a long breath that sounds like the end of a defense. What does he want her to say? The truth, Caprio replies. That the lights blinked and she did not. That her schedule was not worth 22 miles an hour of luck. That if a child had stepped a second earlier, they'd all be in a different building. Her eyes redden. She didn't see them. That, he says softly, is the sentence that writes the news. She nods, once almost imperceptibly. She was wrong. The judge holds her gaze a beat longer, then turns to the senator. He has not spoken, and that's wise, but influence has already walked in wearing his name. This isn't his case, but it is his moment. Would he like to say anything to the court as a citizen? The senator rises slowly. His voice is measured, stripped of podium polish. The court owes his family nothing. His daughter owes this city restraint. He won't excuse it, and he didn't ask anyone to. He sits. The gallery absorbs the rarest sound in politics, a public admission that doesn't ask for a receipt. Caprio nods, satisfied that the room has heard what it needed. He returns to Sloane. He will address penalty. But before that, one more question for her alone. She steadies herself. Yes, who is she when no one recognizes her last name? The question lands in the quiet like a pebble in deep water, small, then widening until it touches every edge. She blinks slowly. She doesn't know that she's had to answer that. Then they'll start there, he says, because this court doesn't recognize last names. It recognizes facts, and the fact is, a driver went 42 past a promise made to children. Her work, her pedigree, her calendar, none of it cancels the flash of a beacon. Her voice is hushed. She understands. Understanding without change is just vocabulary, Caprio replies. So here is what will change. She braces. The gallery leans in, not for spectacle, but for a pattern. How authority behaves when everyone is watching. This is a school zone violation at 22 over. The statutory fine applies, plus court costs. That alone would be ordinary, but ordinary doesn't repair trust. Therefore, he is imposing the following conditions designed not to shame her, but to instruct her, and anyone who thinks she had a shortcut here. She nods, rigid, but listening. She will attend and complete a certified driver safety course within 30 days. She will perform 40 hours with the city's school zone safety program, sign duty at morning beacons, traffic education sessions, the dull, decent work that keeps small people safe. She will file a written statement with this court addressed to the crossing guard program, not to the media, to the people who hold stop signs when no one's filming. Her mouth opens. No words arrive. Something in her expression collapses inward, not humiliation, but the first real movement toward humility. Caprio continues. Finally, the court will stay a license suspension review for 6 months. If there are any violations in that window, any, this case returns to this bench and he will take her license for 30 days. If there are none, the stay expires quietly and she will have kept her promise. She swallows. She accepts. Acceptance is good, he says. Compliance is better. Understanding is best. Then, after a beat, one more rule. In this room, she does not interrupt. On those streets, she does not rush. Those are the same rules spoken 2 ways. Respect. Her eyes lift. Yes, Your Honor. The judge turns slightly toward the gallery, not for applause, but for witness. Let it be said plainly, titles belong on ballots, not in front of the law. He signs the order. The pen scrape is the only sound. Sloane stands quieter than she entered. She looks toward the back of the room, toward the father who did not speak for her. He doesn't nod, he doesn't smile, but he stands, and for once, he looks like a man learning alongside his child. The court waits. The lesson has 1 section left to write, the kind that lingers after the paperwork is done. For a long moment, no one moves. The sound of the gavel doesn't strike. It doesn't have to. The room itself feels like a verdict. Sloane Barrett's shoulders are no longer squared in confidence. The polished veneer that once made her untouchable is beginning to peel, revealing the ordinary beneath. She isn't a senator's daughter anymore in this moment. She's just another citizen caught in the light of accountability. She asks if she may say something. Caprio nods. She may. She takes a breath. She came here thinking this was about efficiency. Get in, pay the fine, move on. She thought her name meant this would be routine, but she was wrong. She glances toward the crossing guard in the gallery, then to the rideshare driver. They were both there, and she didn't even think about what it must have felt like to see that car coming. She didn't think about anything except being late. Her throat tightens. She didn't deserve leniency. She deserved to be stopped. The gallery is silent again, but this time it's not out of judgment, it's respect. Even the senator's posture softens. For the first time, his daughter's words aren't polished, they're real. Caprio listens quietly. He doesn't interrupt, doesn't comfort. He knows the sound of genuine accountability when he hears it. When she finishes, he nods once. That's not an apology to him. That's an apology to herself. That's where all the good ones start. A faint tremor passes her lips as she exhales. She understands. Good, he replies. Then perhaps you'll understand this too. When justice is done right, it doesn't humiliate, it humbles. She's just proven that difference. Her eyes glisten, but she doesn't cry. She stands a little straighter. You'll perform your service, he says, and he hopes when she stands under those flashing lights with a stop sign in her hand, she'll remember this room, not as punishment, but as perspective. She nods. She will. Then they're finished here. He turns to the clerk. Enter judgment and conditions as stated. Case closed. The file snaps shut. The words echo softly through the courtroom, signaling the end of a story that started as entitlement and ended in clarity. But before anyone moves, something unexpected happens. Senator Barrett rises from his seat, clearing his throat softly. Your Honor, Caprio looks up. Yes, Senator. He'd like to thank the court for treating his daughter the way every citizen should be treated. Without favor, without fear. He turns to the gallery. For a long time he's taught her that their name carried weight. Today, he learned it carries responsibility. It isn't political. It isn't rehearsed. It's honest. And the honesty surprises even him. The crowd doesn't clap. They just sit with it, letting the truth settle. Caprio offers a rare smile. That's a fine lesson, Senator. Better late than never. The senator nods. Yes, sir. Better late than never. He sits again, quiet, reflective. The gavel finally falls once, not as a symbol of dominance, but of closure. If you believe justice should never bow to privilege, subscribe. Because fairness isn't about power, it's about presence. And sometimes, presence is the loudest truth in the room. Outside the courthouse, the air is crisp, unremarkable. The kind of morning people hurry through without noticing. But for Sloane Barrett, every sound feels louder. The echo of her heels on the concrete, the faint buzz of traffic, the sound of children's laughter drifting from somewhere nearby. It all feels different now. Maybe because for the first time, she's listening. Officer Diaz steps out behind her, nodding once. Ma'am, he says simply, polite but firm. She nods back. Officer, thank you for stopping me. He pauses. That's my job. She knows, she says softly, and she's finally starting to understand what that means. He nods again and walks off, leaving her standing under a sky that looks cleaner than when she walked in. A few feet away, Mrs. Bell, the crossing guard, waits with her grandson. The boy recognizes her from the courtroom and stares curiously. Are you the lady who drove too fast? He asks innocently. Sloane kneels slightly to his height. She was, she admits. But she's learning how to slow down. The boy smiles. Good. My grandma says people forget to look both ways when they're in a hurry. Sloane glances at Mrs. Bell, who gives her a small, approving nod. Your grandma's right. She stands again. Tell her I'll be helping her soon. You gonna wear the vest? He asks with a grin. Yes, she says, and the answer surprises even her. I think it'll look good on me. He laughs and runs ahead. Mrs. Bell watches him go, then turns to Sloane. Not everyone gets a second chance to prove they can stop. Make yours count. Sloane nods. I will. Thank you for pulling those kids back that day. Don't thank me, Mrs. Bell says. Thank the light. You just happened to see it a little late. It's said without malice, but the message sinks deep. Sloane smiles faintly. Maybe not too late. She turns to leave, her steps slower now, not because she's uncertain, but because she finally knows how to move at the right pace. Inside, Judge Caprio remains seated for a moment after the room empties. He looks down at the closed case file and murmurs to himself, justice doesn't need to roar. It only needs to be heard. He signs one final note for the record, a brief comment in the margin, lesson delivered, outcome accepted. Then he places the pen down and rises, his robe catching the faint light as he exits. Outside, a car horn blares somewhere in the distance. He smiles slightly at the irony. Another day, another case, another reminder that patience saves lives. The courthouse doors close behind him, but the echo of what was said inside will travel far past the courtroom, past the headlines, into every home that ever wondered if justice still meant equality. Because on this morning, one simple truth stood taller than any title. Last names may open doors, but they don't close consequences.